Clap.
Yay, clap. Thank you guys. Thanks for braving the rain and your Memorial Day weekend to be here. So this class is all about monetizing your photography skills effectively. So I went back and forth with like how to say the things that need to be said without offending you, but a little bit offending you because we need to be offended sometimes in order to change. So we're starting this off with talent is not enough and starving is not noble. Because I think the term starving artist, while we do use it in a lot of ways, we tend to think of that almost as hero status, right? Kind of like painters and sculptors. It's like they were never famous until they died. Well, I would like that not to be the case for all of you. I would like you not necessarily fame, but creating a life out of this thing that we love. This is also not going to be a talk at you. You all brave the rain, so I will talk with you about these things. And really, I have slides, but I want to gear this towards you and what you need out of this talk. Myself, I have been in the industry for 28 years or so. I count from the first time I got paid to take a photo. So about 28 years. I really run 2 full-time businesses. I am an educator in the photography space, but I am also a photographer, and most of my income comes from photography, not education. So it's kind of a big deal, I think, to be relevant in the space that you're teaching in, especially teaching business in. That's why I never really made the whole shift. I could, but I just feel like our industry changes a lot. Right? Don't you feel that way? Whether it's how we have to market ourselves, whether is AI taking over our jobs, or is it actually helping us? I don't know. There's a lot that go in there. I'm going to start with a little bit of mindset, but don't worry, this is not a fluffy class by any stretch of the imagination. I don't do fluffy. I'm very practical and logical, but that scares people sometimes. So I have to like do positive sandwiches. So that's what this is first. Before I yell at you, I'm going to, I don't know, fluff you up a little. But I do want to know from you guys here, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to making money as a photographer? Go ahead, Eric.
Consistent clients.
Consistent clients, love that. What else?
Information organization workflow from an inquiry to the final shoot and delivery.
All right, so he said information from inquiry, so like lead management to communication to workflow, final delivery, which, it's funny because you would think in your head, I like how you think, because most people would be like, what does that have to do with monetizing? It has everything to do with monetizing. It's in my slides. That's exciting. I like that. Good. What else? What else just irks you about trying to make money as a photographer? Pricing. How do I price myself so I make money but not scare everyone away? Is that what you're thinking? Yeah. Where to start? Pricing? Or where to start even asking for money? Yes, all of that. And it tends to be really difficult because the truth is one of the big, myths is art and money don't mix. Because if I'm a true artist, if I am so authentic, then I don't need the money. I'm so detached from making money because it's all about the art. Okay. I like to, I don't know. I have kids. I'm not fed on exposure and they're not fed on art. So the truth is creativity is more powerful when it's sustainable. Because think about that. If I can both be creative and not have to worry about my finances and feel like I'm supporting a family, maybe I feel like I'm supporting people, I'm employing them, and I'm having a good system where my clients are happy, how much more creative can I actually be? How much more can I buy gear to feel creative with, right? So creativity is more powerful when it's sustainable. The biggest lie that I find a lot of photographers tell themselves is that I'm not good enough to charge that much, or I'm not good enough to charge anything. And that is a mindset that I would like to tell you that you're going to get over, but the truth is even I haven't gotten over it yet. Because as you go on, and I will teach you how to raise your prices, but as you go on, like you still are always like, am I good enough for this? Wait, am I good enough to be here? The imposter syndrome is real at any level, but I got the best best piece of advice about imposter syndrome recently. I have to share it with you. The real imposters don't have imposter syndrome. The fact that you have imposter syndrome means that you care. And that is only a good thing. And if you want to think about the emotional value of what you do, you create things that people run into burning buildings for. I actually had a text from one of my clients. She lived in like a row of townhouses, and this townhouse was burning, and hers was 3 over. And she texted me, she said, Vanessa, my house was burning down. My husband was there. I wasn't there yet. And he said, what do you want me to get in and save? And she goes, my wedding album, our wedding album. What? I got goosebumps telling you that. But that's the truth of what we do. Now, it might not be for like the corporate Hilton, photos that I take, but that's a different story. You want to value yourself, your time, and what you create. And I don't want that to sound, again, fluffy, but I just want you to think about that realistically. Any time that you book a job, they are paying you to be away from the thing that is the most valuable to you, whether that's your own time, your time with your family, your time with your friends. You've all heard it saying, no one on their deathbed is saying, man, I wish I took one more job, right? So essentially, when you're getting paid, when you are charging for your photography, yes, it's to produce a photo, but it's really your time. And having that mindset, you realize how valuable that is. Okay, now we're getting serious. Are we done with the fluff? Y'all feel good? Did that y'all come off okay? I'm really working on that. Really working real hard on that. Because I just say you guys comes off and then people yell at me. They're like, oh, she's not from Texas. She's from the Northeast. And then I get the finger. So I want to break this down first into who photographers make money from. And that might be a weird way to look at it, but I'm very logical in the way that I think. And I want to know, okay, if I want to make money as a photographer, I would like this number to come into my checking account. Okay, then where is that actually coming from? And so many of us are very disheartened by the photography opportunities today. So I'm going to go through this quickly. Don't panic. I will give you a QR code to download this. You actually don't have to make any notes at all. I'm going to give you a QR code to download the whole presentation. And I'm not even asking for your email address, your phone number, your firstborn child, like nothing. All right. You will get this. But here's what. Go ahead. Just go. Get it out of your system.
Or I don't know. You could watch back the stream we're doing right now. That might help.
Good.
Easily.
All right, so who pays for photography? Consumers, companies, creators and professionals, institutions, organizations. Don't write this down. Stop it. Listen. Media publications and fellow photographers. All right, I'm going to break this down into two. I'm going to talk about all of those, but I want you to start thinking about this because it's going to make sense on how you monetize and how you get these clients later. You have to think about, where is this money coming from? Where are my clients coming from? So consumers, this is couples, families, individual people holding events, birthday parties, weddings, family photos, newborn consumers. Why do they want photography is the second thing you have to think about. Why would they bother hiring someone instead of just having someone with an iPhone? Right? So you have to think about, who are these people that are going to pay me and why do they want what I offer? So that's for consumers. For companies, think about this: small businesses, large corporations, agencies, real estate firms, realtors, e-commerce brand. They're looking at it a little bit differently. They want marketing ROI, brand image. They're selling something they need photography for, or maybe it's even just recruiting talent and acquisition. Then we have this whole field of creators and professionals. So that's like your influencers, content creators. That is a whole new genre. A lot of us kind of cringe over, but the truth is that just created a lot of people that need a lot of content. And at some point, they need something that's going to come out differently, better, or more streamlined out of their hands than an iPhone. Book covers, coaches, artists, actors, models, all of that. And they want it for different reasons. Again, you can read through all this later. But I want to give you that whole grasp. Institutions, organizations like universities, government programs. A girl I know over here in Brooklyn, She is doing a project in the community that she lives in. She gets paid by the community to photograph the people in the community as a community outreach effort. So there are lots of different places that you can find people who are paying for photography. Media and publications, while this is not as great as it used to be, you're not getting a full-time job typically as a staff photographer for a magazine, these are still people that need work. And then finally, and one most people never think of, your fellow photographers. Whether that's someone that needs a second shooter, an assistant, they need to have promotional images, branding, and maybe they're going to have you go shoot a job, go do an assisting job there. The point of all this and why I just ran through it really quickly is I want to get it in your head that there is photography work out there. It's just a matter of understanding what you want to do and then who's going to pay that and then being attractive to them. Because that is what we're going to get into next. Are there any questions now that I've monologued for 26 minutes? We're good? So with me, you're doing a lot of nodding, which for the record, I really appreciate.
It's only 11 minutes, but okay.
What?
It's only 11 minutes, not 20.
Okay, 11, not 26. That was the part I hated, so that's why I went through quickly. A lot of us, and probably one of the biggest questions I get asked is like, how do I get leads? How do I get leads? How do I get people to come into my website, into my social media? How do I get them to notice me? How do I get them to hire me? And that's not actually the first question that you need to be concerned with. The first question or the first concept you need to be concerned with is, are you ready for that traffic? Are you ready for the first impression that you're going to give someone? Because if when they come to your website, when they come to your social media, when they even meet you in person, you are not ready to make the correct first impression to appeal to that ideal client that you want, then all that effort you do, all that social media posting, all the lead generation, networking, all the things I'm going to talk to you about, it's garbage. God forbid you actually started paying for ads and you weren't ready for the leads. You're wasting time and you're wasting money. You're paying to give yourself a bad reputation. Because if you are not ready for that first impression, then you are, it's so much more difficult to re-impression someone, right? Because you get a first impression, that's just how they're going to judge you. And you can maybe change 10 years later, have a totally different photography style or whatever. But that first impression is the thing that's going to stick with them. Just ask Seth about my first impression with him. So here's what we have to think about to get ready for traffic. Your website and social media, that's your first place. And we're going to talk about what you actually have to do. The second thing, and I put this kind of in order of importance, the second thing is your lead management system. Then you have to learn how to sell or how to communicate effectively. We were talking about this on Coffee and Creators, which you will see air, and talking about when you are sitting in front of a potential client and you know darn well that you have the best possible photography for them, that you're going to be the best photographer for that project. If that's the truth, but you don't communicate it effectively and they don't understand that you're the best, then you've actually done them a disservice because they're going to go somewhere else and potentially be dissatisfied because really you were the best choice for them. But because you didn't know how to communicate effectively, they went somewhere else. Pricing your services is the big one. There's a lot of psychology that goes into that, both in your brain as well as the other consumer brain. And what you were saying, Charles, is having a process that elevates the client experience. Because your first impression is first when they talk to you, but then there's only one time that you get to make the first impression when they're actually working with you. And that first impression is either going to leave them with wanting to work with you again or wanting to tell all of their friends about how horrible you were to work with, because that is a great story to tell over drinks at a party. And then ultimately creating legacy clients. So the hardest thing for you to do as a photographer, or really any business owner, is to get someone to trust you, right? To trust you for the first time. They don't really know you. you looked okay online, you look good on social media, you said the things they needed to hear. But ultimately, when they finally trust you, that's the biggest step they will ever take with you. So once you have that, creating a legacy client, meaning they hire you again and again and again and again, monetizing that is extremely powerful. So how do you actually get ready and decide, how am I going to communicate? How am I going to look? How am I going to have a good first impression that doesn't look like every other photographer out there? Branding is the best term that I can use for it, but I think branding is very misunderstood. Branding is not just a logo. Branding is the entire experience of how people feel when they interact with you and your business. Every touch point, every single touch point matters. Now, what I'm going to do right now is talk to you about every touch point for your actual client and how you can elevate it. However, I want you to think also, anytime that you're in a situation where maybe you're working on an event, family photos, what corporate event, whatever it is, you have your client in front of you, but then I want you to think about the second degree of people that are watching you. So you have touch points. If you photograph a wedding, 200 people in it, those are 200 first impressions that you're making. And they have all decided how good of a photographer you are without ever seeing a single photo. I just came back from West Palm Beach. I photographed a 5-day wedding event. It was wild for someone I can't even talk about because I'm under NDA. But when I showed up to there knowing the billions and billions and billions of dollars this person was worth, I did not show up, obviously, in my jeans. I went to rent the runway and I rented designer dresses so that I looked like I fit in that room. That impression is everything. And for the record, maybe if you're doing a birthday event, don't show up in designer dresses because that's also not going to be a good impression. You want to make sure that wherever your brand is, whatever touch points you're making, whether it's with your client or anyone around you, matches the client experience. So your social presence and your website, this is typically your very first opportunity to show off your brand, right? Unless they meet in person. But typically, I would say, 90% of the time, when you have clients that find you before they contact you, they went through your website or they went through social media, right? Maybe they did get a referral, but ultimately, before they contacted you, they still went to your website, they still went to your social media. It's really important to not just post your photos. Now, I would absolutely love to tell you that your images should sell themselves, but your clients don't know the difference between good and great photography, so it's impossible for your images to sell themselves. You want to tell stories, whether it's stories about what it is that you're photographing. You want to show your personality, because most people, especially at this point, they want to know who they're working with. Whether it's a corporate job, is this person professional? Are they going to show up? Are they going to be professional, like in behavior as well as appearance? Or maybe if you're a newborn photographer, are they going to handle my baby with care, right? Showing off your personality behind the scenes is huge. I was just doing a podcast with the vendor table out in Long Island. And one of the guys, one of the two people that host that podcast, Michael, he is a wedding photographer, and he started posting on TikTok. He did like 30 days posting TikTok, once a day, and he ended up getting 20 inquiries just from TikTok. Now, in your head, you're like, oh, he must have had some great photos he posted. No, you want to know the biggest, where he booked 2 weddings from this one TikTok. All you see for the first 5 seconds is the bridal party and everyone, I don't remember what song it was. It was, I don't know, Sweet Caroline, pick something. And they're just typical wedding song. And he wrote on there, like, every wedding photographer loves to hear this song, which means it definitely wasn't Sweet Caroline, because if I hear that song again, just no. There's some songs that you have PTSD from after weddings. It's Run Around Sue. Sweet Caroline and September. You know, do you remember? Yeah, no. So some of the song was playing. So this TikTok, all it was about 7 seconds of bridal party going crazy on the dance floor. And then it pans over to him. He has his camera in one hand and he just sings the lyrics as he's clicking. That's it. You don't see a single photo. You just see how much fun he is on the dance floor. He booked 2 weddings from that one reel alone. Clients today, and it's for weddings, it's for anywhere, are looking for very specific things, and we'll get into this more, very specific things when it comes to photographers. And it has very little to do with the photos that we're producing. Love it or hate it, it's the truth. Your presentation, we talked about, like your environment, your personal style, and it's not just you. If you have an assistant that comes, the second shooter that comes, they are speaking for your brand. I'll give you a great story about this. I had this guy, we'll just call him John. His name wasn't John. It's not John. I had a great second shooter that's named John. It's not you. It's not you. This guy, phenomenal work. I'm jealous of his work. He's a phenomenal wedding photographer. And I had him come along on a job, and he shot the day, and he did amazing, amazing imagery. But he dressed professionally. But his behavior day of was just like, he looked so intense. It was scary. And even the movements he made were like, and I'm like, dude, like, I love your work, but this is a wedding. We're happy here. There's no stress. And I can see stress all over your face. He was like, oh, okay. No worries. Like, you know, give me another chance. And I'll do that. I'm like, okay, fine. They're just like, shoot and smile. That's all I ask. Shoot and smile. And he came again and he couldn't do it. And I was very honest with him. Like, I would love to work with you again, but it's not representing my brand well. And that really is going to hurt me. Switched to this past weekend. I flew one of my friends, Jana Williams, in from LA. And she's a phenomenal wedding photographer, but more than a wedding photographer, she is so good with people. Granted, she's from Alabama, and that y'all just comes right off her lips like, oh, it's so natural, so good. But she's so good with people. She's an absolute rock star. And I'm like, oh, she doesn't really second shoot like ever. But I did one for her, so she did one for me. And man, I would pay her like quadruple a normal second shooter rate just to represent my brand at all times because she is so phenomenal. All those things matter because, again, everyone that is seeing you work, seeing the way you dress, like, they're making their judgments before they see a single photo, unfortunately. Now, lead management is the second thing we have to worry about. How many of you have ever tried to contact a company before? I mean, everyone, right? How many of you have tried to call a company and gotten the AI menu system? And then you immediately hung up the phone and tried another company, right? Your clients are the same way. If it is that hard to book you and get a hold of you when you're trying to hand them money, think about how difficult it will be later. In their heads, you know what they're thinking? Oh my gosh, well, this photographer is going to turn into that photographer on the news I saw that ran away with all these people's money, right? That's what they're thinking. So you want to be able to handle leads and manage them effectively, even when you're out shooting. So you could have a client system management for this. I'll show you who I use in a second. But the 2 things that are the most important is 1, communicate fast. Get back to them fast. I think the statistic is if you get back to them in 5 hours, your chances of booking them rises 80%. And then if you are the first person to get back to them, the chances of them booking you are another 80% higher. So those are pretty big statistics. And we can do that with automated systems that are not aggravating ones when you pick up the phone. You want to make it as easy as possible to speak with you. Now, the way that I do this personally, I use 17 Hats. There's a lot of great client management systems out there. I like 17 Hats, honestly, because I've been using them forever and nobody wants to switch client management systems. That's just a nightmare. But they're always innovating. I know they're getting texting in there, which is very big. But when I respond to a client, I immediately put a booking link in there. So they can, even if I haven't told them if I'm available on their day or not, they can click on that and they can get in my calendar to have a call with me. Isn't that what you guys want too? You just like, get it in my calendar. Let's move on with my life. I mean, doctors' offices have it now. My kids' school system has it now. We're used to that. So if culturally that's what we're used to as a consumer for other things, you have to keep up with that. Otherwise, you're pissing people off before they even get a chance to contact you. And client management systems, it's just a necessity for workflow. But I also like 17 Hats because it has bookkeeping in it. I have a mastermind. I have some of my students here. Hi, Stephen. Kind of cool. And one of my students, Melissa, she's not here. She lives in Utah. I did not expect her to fly. She got her client management system in order. She found additional income of $23,000 that she wasn't even aware of, right? She has the wonderful problem most of us wish we had, where she gets so many leads and so many bookings because she's so personable and she just like attracts people. She's like that kind of magnet. But because of that, and she didn't have a good system on the back end, it was like papers are flying everywhere in her office type vibes. But once we got her organized, she literally, $23,000, that was like, whoops, I dropped it between the couch cushions. Your client experience is also a big part of it. I was arguing with someone on Instagram recently about this. Instagram used to be the safe space. Yes, it did. It was, YouTube was nasty and Instagram was like mostly safe. But today, I got called the newbie photographer that was allergic to holding her camera correctly. That was an hour ago. But anyway, I was fighting with somebody else. That guy got a snarky Jersey response. But this person, I was saying something to the effect of, debatably, your photos are actually secondary to what you provide to your client. And somebody argued with me, no, you have to provide the best images and that's what's most important. I'm like, think about that for a second. You take amazing images, stellar, the best image, best photo I have ever seen of myself. But you're a jerk. You made me feel like crap. I had to beg you for the photos because you never delivered them. What story are you going to tell your client, your friends? Are you going to tell them about how much I love this photo? Or are you going to tell them that party joke, right? Of, oh my God, you won't believe what my photographer said to me to get that pose, right? I think the client experience matters just as much, if not more, than the photos. Is that a question?
Yeah, you got a question in the chat. They're wondering how many of your wedding clients come from guest weddings you shoot that saw your work or your vibe and then booked you, recommend you for future weddings.
I would say, if I were to put like a ratio on it, I would probably say at least 30 to 40% are people that have seen me work. Other ones are usually like word of mouth recommendations, not necessarily seeing me work. Yeah, but a good amount. Another thing you could do with client experience is solving problems before they happen, answering questions before they're asked, and it saves you a lot of emails back and forth. Now, one of the things that I do, and this is your first big marketing tip on how to get new clients, and the reason why that number is 30 to 40%. You have to find ways to surprise and delight your clients. As a business, yes, you need to set expectations and then you need to meet those expectations. But that's nothing to write home about. You go into Target and you go in there and you buy shampoo and you walk out with your shampoo, that's nothing to talk about. But if you went in there to buy shampoo and on your way out, they're like, here's some conditioner and hairspray. You're like, oh, so cool. Let me post an Instagram story about this, right? It's the same thing. You have to find a way to surprise and delight. So for me, I do same day edits the night of a wedding. I do next day edits, same day edits of engagement sessions and family sessions. I have even printed group photos from corporate events that I have photographed. I'll print a group photo and hand it to them that day. And that act alone of finding ways to surprise and delight have secured me, I'll just tell you with Hilton. So when I first started working with them was through a referral of a friend of mine, and I could tell like they were calling me for the jobs like their first photographer wasn't available for. And I would go like, I don't know, once a year, maybe twice a year, I would do something. One day, I think it was Cabo, they're 3-day shoots. So the first day we had taken a photo of the group of all of us there, you know, the producer, head of marketing, whoever. So the next morning, because I come straight from a wedding and I had my printer with me, it's a Canon Selfie 1500, it's like a $200 printer and small, it's literally like that big, fits right in my camera bag. I printed out that photo for every one of the people in the photo, and I got there to our green room early and I just left the photo on everybody's laptops. Well, since then, it wasn't once or twice a year anymore. It was, hey, Vanessa, here are the dates for the year. Big difference. And I also apologize to the photographer they may have been working with.
I guess they're asking, are you still doing album delivery at reception?
Yes. So I deliver albums at the reception. I think I have a little bit more on the slides of this later. I do. I will get to exactly what I do later. But it doesn't have to be, it's not wedding specific is the point, right? We want to make sure that we are finding ways to exceed the client expectations because that directly affects your leads. You want to build whatever you decide to do, make sure you're building it on authentically who you are. I'm not telling you to like, oh, your clients are going to like this, so let's be a chameleon and just, you know, be this other person that you actually aren't. No, we still want to be our authentic selves, still want to produce the work that we like to produce, but you want to do it in a way that attracts the clients that are the perfect fit for you and who you want to work with. You're spending your time with them, right? You might as well spend time with people you like.
They're asking in the chat, do you have any good recommendations for a gallery sales system for digital and prints?
Yes, but I'm currently reevaluating who I use, so I'm going to give you a few. Right now, I'm looking at PickTime, and the reason I'm looking at PickTime is because they have facial recognition in the galleries, so any guest, again, goes to the experience of the touch points, any guest can click on their face and then go see all the photos of them. That's one I'm looking at right now. That looks really promising. The one I'm using right now is NView, N-VU, and they're really good. And again, they all do the same basic things, but PickTime was the only one that had that feature in it, and I really like that feature because it enhanced the client experience. Yeah.
What do you think about Pixpot? I use Pixpot. I'm just curious.
Pixpot? I haven't heard of that one.
P-I-X-P-A, Pixpot.
I haven't heard that one. Pixie Set is another one that's really good. And the Sprout Studio is one that's pretty good. SmugMug people even use still. They're all fairly similar. It's whatever you think your clients are going to get the most out of, that's what you should use, because that is very client facing. If it annoys you a little bit, but it's really good for your clients, like that's the one you choose. Yeah. How do I like Miller's? Yeah. Miller's Lab? Yeah. They're great. Yeah. Yeah. There's also like Adorama, I think Printique. I wanted to say Pix because it used to be Adorama Pix. Printique is a great one, and it's local right here. And H&H is a lab that I use a lot. It comes down a lot to the customer service for me too. That's the big one. Good? Cool. All right. Now all of this is like, but Vanessa, I just want to take photos. And unfortunately, it's kind of too bad. Because I'm sorry, it just is, because the hard truth is either you become CEO or you will go work for one. And that's a choice. And you get to have, either choice is fine, but I'm going to guess if you're watching this and you're here, you want to be the CEO. So you just want to think CEO mentality. So we've gotten to the point where like, okay, I know how to look good. I know how to build a stellar experience. And that's all for people who are in here, but let's backtrack it a little bit more and talk about pricing. Since that was something that definitely a lot of people get stuck on, and for good reason. I mean, pricing, a lot of people associate like shame with money. Even just like saying what you charge, knowing that you would probably not pay for that, can be really difficult. But pricing does not necessarily have to be affordable to you. It has to be affordable to the client that's valuing you. A lot of people underestimate the time it takes for a project. I mean, I look at a wedding, for example. Everyone's like, oh, my favorite thing people say to me, oh, your wedding, oh, you just work on weekends. Oh my God. Oh, I hate you. Oh. You don't. A wedding, the wedding day is the least amount of time I spend on that wedding. It's a 40, 50 hours of work going to every wedding. It's very easy to underestimate your expenses also, especially since we keep buying pretty things. And then fear of rejection. Well, if these are my prices, they're going to say no to me. Let me get this through your head. I don't care what you charge, whether it's $1 or $500 or $500,000. People are going to say no. They say no to me all the time. As a matter of fact, the more you charge, the more they're going to say no, because that's just numbers. That's like, you know, the bell curve. Most people can afford here, and you decide to be over here. Well, there's that much less people that can afford you. You're going to get a lot more no's in that case. All right. So you can't let pricing paralyze you. You just have to be confident in where it is. A lot of people charge by the hour. Don't charge by the hour. You're charging by the impact, the use of the photos, your time. Because in your head, a lot of us think this when it comes to like prints too. I don't know, a Printique, an 8x10 is what, like $2, $3, $4? And like, well, I can't charge $50 for an 8x10. That's extortion. Well, they're not paying for the piece of paper. You're paying for the piece of paper. They're paying for the impact of the image that you've created on that piece of paper and how it's going to be passed down. Or if you're in commercial, how it's going to sell them hundreds of thousands of dollars of whatever their product or service is. And the biggest thing that I see people make mistakes on, and I think it comes from the fear portion, is they make these price sheets and they're beautifully elaborate and there's a bazillion photos on it, because in their head they're like, wait, I know it looks expensive, but look how pretty the photo is. Now I'm going to put the photo next to the price because this will justify it. It won't. You have to keep it simple. There's something in your brain, in all humans' brains, it's a fight or flight instinct. And if you have to think too much, it turns on that fight or flight instinct. Like if something is burning more brain cells than it should, you're going to initially just be like, oh, no, and you glaze over and you can't absorb information anymore. More simply, a confused mind says no. So people are already stressed out about money. People are already stressed out about numbers. So you have to minimize any other distractions or stress on there. Now, when you're creating your pricing, you have to know your numbers. And these are the 4 things you have to worry about when you're creating pricing. You've got your cost of business. And your cost of business is like, what does my website cost per year? What does that online gallery service cost per year? The gear, how much money am I putting aside to upgrade my gear? Like all the things that aren't attached to a specific job. Then you have to look at the things that are attached to a specific job. So like if I'm photographing a Hilton job, I have to fly to get there. I have to fly my second shooter to get there. I have to pay my second shooter. I have to potentially buy, oh my gosh, we had to photograph in Quebec, in Canada. And the way that these resorts photos work is, well, you know when the best light is, right? For landscapes, it's right after sunset and right after sunrise and right before sunset. So when is it the most cold? Those times exactly. So I had to buy $1,500 worth of heated things for myself and my guy that came with me. That is a cost of sale. Cost of production would be like, I'm going to pay for this album. I'm going to have to pay for my editing. I don't edit my photos because I hate it. And I pay someone else. So that's a cost of production. And then the 4th one here that most people don't think about, like how much money do you want to make? Because what happens, and a lot of people get a little saddened when they start doing this math, because in my mastermind, I make people start doing that math, and you see how much you charge, and then you take out all these costs, and then you're like, oh wait, yeah, I do work 50 hours per wedding. And if I divide how much I'm actually taking home from that wedding into 50 hours, I should probably just go work at McDonald's or Starbucks. And then you're like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. So you have to think about all of that. Now, I have some intense math for you on this if you actually want to work with the numbers. That is a QR code for that. We're not going to do that here because I think I've stressed you out enough. But this is something called the 20-day challenge I put together. It's actually hosted, not even from like me, it's hosted elsewhere, but this will help you break down all the math. I have like a worksheet with all the math here for that. So that will be really, really helpful. And then there's also digging deeper into a lot of the other things we'll talk about here. You can grab that there. But if I was going to give you the best pricing advice ever, 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 it would be what was given to me. Raise your prices every time you book your highest package, highest price, highest collection, because they would have paid you more. It's an indication that you've reached an elevating point in your career. And Stephen, I'm so glad you're here because I'm quoting you. Stephen in my mastermind had this win twice in the last week. He was able to book his highest collection he's ever booked after we reworked the pricing. So amazing. And it's such a good feeling too, because you just get to erase that thought that you aren't worth it. You're like, wait a minute. I was the thing that was saying I wasn't worth it. It wasn't my client. And we'll get into that more about how we make decisions for our clients that we don't even realize we're making. You want to get into the habit. You're not selling photos. You're selling outcomes and you're selling experiences. Another way that it was taught to me is make sure you're selling the vacation. You're not selling the plane ride. Because when you sell the vacation, you're talking about laying on the beach and drinking Mai Tais, stuffing your face with every dessert you deny yourself when you're at home. But a lot of us start talking about having to pack and walk through TSA and having them take every one of our pieces of camera out and then put it back through the X-ray machine again. That's not how you sell a vacation, right? And we do that a lot of times when we are in like a consulting situation. Like, okay, they like your work. They talk to us. What do? We go, okay, well, let me tell you about how I work. And then you go into a 20-minute monologue about the plane ride, really? And you want to know how much people remember about a monologue? The beginning, the end, and everything they said, which is nothing. So you want to start selling experiences and outcomes. And it's a matter of communicating to them in a way that you're talking about the things they actually care about. Because if we go through our whole process of this is what it's like before, this is what it's like, how I work the day of and what I say, like it's lovely. But how much better would it be if you took the time to ask them questions like, hey, what do you care most about on this project? What are you actually hoping to get from these photos on the back end? Like, yes, you want pretty photos, but you want those pretty photos to help your website, to help your social media, to help sell this product, service, to give to grandma, like whatever it is. Your messaging is going to be much more impactful if you take that time to ask what they care about. And then when you pitch your services, you're only going to talk about the things that they care about. It's so much more effective. And then you're not just like wasting air for nothing. So the last part of this is how do we find these clients that value you? It's really nice for me to be like, raise your prices. And I'm not saying that for the record because I can't stand when I hear people just tell people to raise their prices. It's like, okay, there's a lot more that goes into it than that. But let's just say you're solid about that. You're ready for that first impression. You have that lead management in position. You are ready for them. Your pricing is solid. You know how to communicate to them. You know how to give them an amazing experience. Then it's like, okay, but these people are not like coming out of the walls. How do I get them? Marketing for most of us is an afterthought. We take some photos and at some point we're like, I really should post these photos on Instagram. And then you never do because the next job comes and those photos are on some older hard drive and you never get around to it. Your marketing has to be a part of your workflow. It cannot be an afterthought. We don't have time for afterthoughts. To be very transparent, that's why I started doing same-day edits. Yes, 100% it was about surprising and delighting my clients. Got a bazillion leads that way and really good reviews, all of that. But what it did for me was actually finish all of my marketing the night of the wedding. So what does it do? I select the way it works, and I'll just put this up here because I outline everything that I use right there. You just DM me the words surprise album. My Instagram is @Vanessa Joy. Just send me a message with the word surprise album. So what do I do throughout the day? I've got my R5 Mark II, my Canon R5 Mark II, and it has this button that's a rate button. As I am photographing the photos that I like, I hit rate. I'm careful about what I rate. I make sure that I'm having photos with every single vendor. So that means I'm highlighting the florals, the makeup, the invitation designer, the hall where I am. So, and then also to tell the story. So obviously photos of the couple, photo of the family, key moments, ceremony, like all the things. Usually it's like 50 to 80 photos. If I really didn't like that wedding, it's like 30. I'm just as inspired or uninspired as any of you by what I shoot. And if I really liked it, it's like, wow, there's 150 photos in the same day edit. That's an entire album. We need to like take it down. But those images right there, I'm editing them in Lightroom on my phone, and I'm choosing images because it's JPEGs, because I have Wi-Fi from my camera to my phone. I'm choosing images that don't need a lot of work. Not that any of my images need a lot. But, you know, just choosing them. And it's very simple. My editing style is very simple. So it's just like little pop of color, a little contrast, throw some things into black and white, we're good. But those images, in addition to printing my client an album and handing it to them, in addition to having it up on an iPad that they pass around and get all excited, I also airdrop it to my clients, but then I'm putting it in a Dropbox folder, and I'm going into Instagram. This is a very key part of marketing. I'm not emailing those vendors I worked with. I am sending them a message on Instagram with the Dropbox link. So nice working with you. Here are a bunch of images that you can use for, you know, until 3 to 4 weeks when the rest of the images are ready. I'll send them to you. And by the way, here's also all of the vendor credits with myself listed first, of course, because they're going to copy and paste that when they use the photos. But I Instagram them because then that tells Instagram, hey, these two people know each other. They send messages to each other. So then Instagram is going to show my feed to all these people. And then when the photos are ready again in 3 to 4 weeks, I don't email them, send it on Instagram. So vendor networking is done. Those are the same images I would use for a blog, for landing pages, for search engine optimization. If I'm submitting for publication, same images or social media images, and then they're my clients' social media images, and I can make reels for them. So all of that marketing is done. It's part of the process. Now, real quick about publications, because, I mean, is there anyone here that doesn't want to be published, recognized in some sort of, no, right? Like we all love that. It is much more difficult to be published in a magazine, a blog, than it ever has been. 15 years ago, 16 years ago, the first time that I submitted for like a magazine, I think I got published in like 11 magazines. The first time, like I sent out a manila envelope, like media packet to people, like little CD. CDs were this thing that we like 11 times. Now, I get published maybe once a year-ish, and I've never been published in Vogue. And on that note, if you see people who have been published in Vogue, please know that there is an option to pay for that. So sometimes things are not always as they seem.
They're asking in the chat, how much time does it take to get the photos to your phone, edit, and send to the vendors?
I do all of that in the in-between moments. Because my camera has Wi-Fi, my phone is typically in my pocket. 5 minutes I have before the ceremony starts, I got those rated photos and I'm throwing them over. You know, 5 minutes before they walk into the reception, okay, I'm throwing them in Lightroom and I'm doing some quick editing. It's in those little in-between moments, yeah.
For your corporate clients, are you following a similar sort of workflow for delivery, or are you sending those through an email or predetermined kind of?
I love that. So he asked for corporate clients, are you doing a similar type of delivery? So my corporate clients are having me shoot tethered. So they're looking at the photos right then and there. And now the first time I did this, they were just looking at them being like, okay, yeah, we got it, move on to the next thing. Now I make them rate their favorites. So I don't have to cull later. It's all done and I can deliver everything in a much faster time frame. Yeah.
When you go from your camera directly, are you using Canon Connect camera?
Canon Connect app is what I use to Wi-Fi the photos. Yeah. I wish there was like a plug-in. You could plug in Lexar makes this little SD card reader with a USB-C that plugs right into your phone. You could do that. Yeah, and it works, but I don't want to take my card out like in those little moments.
The reason I asked was because I saw somebody with a Panasonic camera and it go right to the camera without no like app. So I was wondering if the R5 Mark II did not have the regular one.
I mean, I don't know much about that, but there's also third-party systems that do it. There's a Cam Ranger that, can automatically Wi-Fi. There's a Spot My Photos service that automatically Wi-Fi's publishes and texts people their photos. Write that one down if you want to really impress people. Spot My Photos.
Also, I think what you're talking about is there's a Frame IO integration on Lumix, Fujifilm, Nikon, and
Panasonic?
yeah, that's Panasonic.
That's what he had at Panasonic.
Yeah. So that's an integration, and we're seeing it throughout being standardized in all brands.
That's exciting. Yes.
Consider hashtags to be a bother.
Hashtags? Are they a bother? The hashtags aren't a bother. They just aren't as effective as they used to be. Do I use them still? Yes, because that does allow my photos to be seen somewhere else, but it's not as effective as it used to be, so don't worry about it too much. All right, so I'm going to break down, I think it's 6 different places that you can improve. Hopefully on your marketing, we're going to get like some really solid tips on things you can take home. Number 1 is social media, and I know just grown. I hate it too. I don't love TikTok. I mean, I love it for certain things. You know what's in my algorithm right now? ASMR. All these girls with the big microphones and they're putting like slime on it or like brush it. Like, I'm okay with that actually.
You're a creep.
It's very soothing. It's like a sound bath. Just pick one. Remember I showed you all those clients and where these people come from? Find out which one they're on the most. Pick one. That's what you concentrate on. That's what you're active on, engage on, learn the algorithm on. Just pick one. Once you master that one, feel free to go to another one. For me right now, it's Instagram and TikTok. Instagram is kind of going out for my main clientele and TikTok is coming in, and actually LinkedIn is coming in as I start to search for more clients. And the fun thing about LinkedIn is it's very untapped by photographers, so you stand out. If you want some Instagram tricks, that you could scan that QR code. Top 7, I'm using 2 hands now. Yep. Those tips are very, very tangible. Again, not fluffy. It's just a list of things for you to do. So, if you have time, that's definitely going to help you out. Along with things that are not saturated is direct mail. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but direct mail, because so many people stop doing it, it actually becomes effective again. Now, a lot of you are thinking post office direct mail. I want you to think a little bit past that. A girl that I talked to recently on a podcast, she developed not quite direct mail, but think that tangible piece. She went to local businesses around her and she created her own magazine. And then she sent it to all of those businesses. And what she did, she would walk into a business and go, hey, I'm doing a magazine. Can I interview you on your business? And who's going to say no, right? Oh, and by the way, I can take some photos that'll look really good. Do you mind if I just photograph? And she did this with multiple businesses and ended up getting a ton of leads because 1, she got all the local businesses, photographed them. So that's, social media fodder. And it's also good for landing pages. And then she put all the magazines in all those businesses. So then everybody that went to the magazines or went to the businesses saw the magazines. And she built an entire business. That was her big jump start. So think a little bit outside of the box. Again, it's like zig when they zag. Find the place where it's not saturated. This is the biggest one, networking. And most photographers, honestly, are not that great at this because we became a photographer to hide behind something, not be in front of something. And I get that. I really do. But relationships are everything in this business. Everything. And the problem with relationships and the reason why people don't put the time into them, don't put the time into networking, getting out there, is because they don't pay off right away. They usually don't. But relationships have been the most effective way that I have gained leads over everything else I've done by 500%. I recently just did the math on this. One relationship with somebody that I met probably close to 20 years ago that didn't come to fruition until about 3 years ago. In the past 3 years, I've made over $300,000 from that relationship because I kept it and because relationships are really important to me. So find ways to expand your network. Some really easy ways you can do that, guys, you're in the city. Like there's everything here. Just find charity events you can attend or volunteer. There's a bazillion different photography things. Here in Adorama, they host these classes all the time and live demos. Like look around the room. I bet you some of you here are going to make relationships that last your entire careers if you just like talk to someone and don't run away after this. And you could be more specific about it. You could be like, okay, here are people that I want to meet. Let me look on their Instagram and who do they follow that I know that can make an introduction. So you could be very intentional about it. You can plan shoots together. And then once you have that network, strengthen that network. So sharing your images, collaborate on social media, and send gifts. Oh, gifts. Gifts is one of my favorites. Spoiling my clients and my colleagues. I don't really spend money. I don't really do Facebook advertising or Google ads or anything like that. If I'm going to spend money, I'm going to spend it on my clients. I'm going to spend it on my vendors. So my clients get everything from mini cameras to custom cheese boards, obviously the same day edits. Right now, I'm sending out viewfinders, you know, the old school viewfinder, clicky, the red ones, right, that you look through with the little reel. I'm sending those out to a bunch of my clients, and I'm sending them out to clients from like 5 years ago, like a lot of them. And if somebody sends you a client, like think big. Your colleagues, your relationships, a lot of times, especially if you're in the wedding industry, they're your only repeat clients. So when a wedding planner sends me a job that I book for, I don't know, $18,000, she got Oscar de la Renta earrings that were worth $1,000. I am absolutely spoiling them to death. If you want a little extra credit, one of my favorite things to do that does not cost $1,000 is to create marketing material for people that you work with. You already have the images. You know how to work Canva or Fundy or whatever. Create marketing material for them. This is an example of like a double-sided card that I send out. It's usually called a press printed product if you're looking in Pratique. You just have photos. This is a jeweler, so there's jewelry photos on both sides. And then on one side, it has their logo and information. And then on the other side, it has my logo and contact information. And then you send out a little pack of 25, 50. You could do this with so many different people. And they're basically going to hand out, you know, marketing material for you. But this kind of stuff, I did it for when I moved to Texas. I had to start my whole network all over again. And one of the things I did, there's a hall by me. They needed new marketing material. I'm like, I got you. And I printed it all out for them. And they ended up sending me a ton of clients because it was what they put in their info packets to hand out. And then all of those clients ended up seeing my work. Email and text message marketing is probably my least favorite, but it can be effective. And you could do this in a lot of different ways. You could have a newsletter that you send out. You could have what are called drip campaigns. The idea is for you to stay top of mind. Now, this is really important, especially if you are a family photographer, if you're a corporate photographer. You have to stay top of mind because corporate, for example, they only need you when they need you. You can't sometimes you can convince them to do something, right? Like convince them to do this project. But a lot of times it comes from the top down. All right, CFO decides we need to do this and we decide we need to do this. Now we need to take photos for it. So when that happens, top down, you need to be top of mind for whoever that marketing person is. So newsletters, you can send things in the mail to them. Any other touch points that you can create is only going to help. And text messaging is definitely big. Nobody reads emails. Well, I can't say nobody. If you're working with corporate people, they read all their emails. If you're working with non-corporate people, a consumer about 35 and younger, they're not reading your emails. You have to text them or DM them. It's the best way to get in touch with them. Now, this next part's going to scare you, okay? It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Search engine optimization. which is now ChatGTP. It hurts. It hurts. So just last night, I typed this in. Can you find, into ChatGTP, can you find me a corporate photographer that has a light but vibrant style in the New Jersey area that produces very high quality work with an average day rate of $5,000? And it pulled up all these photographers, contact information, website direction. That is one of the more common ways that people are searching for photographers under the age of 30 now. That's huge. So you want to know the next question that I asked? How did you pull up these people? If I were a photographer wanting to be found for the criteria that I just put in, what do I have to do to get pulled up by you? And that's what it told me. That's the link to download this presentation so you can go read it later. It outlined for me exactly what to do, exactly what to put on my Google business profile, what to do with my search engine optimization, what to do with my landing pages, put on my website, the imagery to show. That's powerful. It's really like search engine optimization on crack. It's really what it is. But that's how detailed people search now. And think about the progression of that. And let's go back to the yellow pages, shall we? The yellow pages, like that's where you would go before the internet to find the business. And whoever had the biggest yellow pages ad usually was the one that got the business. Then we had social media. And with social media and just the internet in general, we had generic ads or even TV, generic ads. But then as we progress and the algorithm spied on us a little bit more, now we get ads that specifically pertain to us. Now think about what that does to your psyche. Now as a 90s, 80s kid growing up and watching Saturday morning cartoons, I was used to having to watch TV commercials, and some of them pertained to me and sold me, my buddy and kid sister. And other ones were just like, why am I looking at a dentures commercial right now? This is very weird. Maybe they thought grandmas were watching the kids on Saturday morning. I don't know. I'm used to ads that don't actually pertain to me being thrown in my face. People now are not used to that. They're used to being able to skip ads, buy away from ads, or if the ads pop up into their feed, it's ones that has things that they actually want that pertain to them. So now it's not Google that's good enough anymore because that's not showing me the exact thing that I want when I search. ChatGTP is showing me the exact thing I want when I search, and I can be really detailed about it. I can talk about absolutely everything I want in a photographer. So your homework is to implement at least 3 of these marketing strategies. I'm not telling you one because you know what? Just put some effort into it, will you? Just 3, at least 3. Because I guarantee you there are places that you thought you were working in and you're like, you know what? I can double down on this. And that's actually what you should do. If you know what's working for you, find a way to double down on it. If something isn't working for you, stop wasting time on it and try something else. And if you want to really get some extra credit, whether it's Instagram or TikTok, make your social media like a mini website. Because so many people don't go to your website anymore. That kind of goes right alongside with today's demographic. They go to your social media because what did I say in the very, very beginning? They're not looking for your photos. Your photos are on their website. They know that. They're looking for who you are. And now we know that who you are is usually shown on social media. So what we need to do is, yes, show who we are, but also give them all the information that they need right at their fingertips where they are on that social media account. And if you want to start giving gifts, that's even better. And I'm going to quote Stephen again because this is one of my favorite stories. He gifted a client from 3 years ago a canvas. Cost less than $100 to print. What was it, a 16 by 24, 24 by 36, 16 by 24? They got their wedding canvas and then asked to order a wedding album. They ordered a 60-page wedding album that cost almost as much as their wedding collection. Some of you have a lot of clients. And the biggest thing that you could do right now to make money, to go all the way back to the beginning of one of the first things I said to you, is to find those clients that already trust you and turn them into legacy clients. They're like, oh, yeah, have you ever ordered your album, by the way, from that photo session, from that wedding, whatever it was? Oh, you're pregnant now. Did you know I do maternity photos? Right? Try to be a little bit more slick than that. But making the most of every single job is the thing that actually, it was a turning point in my own photography business. I doubled my income by having that mindset of legacy clients and making the most of every single job by offering print, like print photos. Nobody is looking down in their camera feed from, 6 years ago, unless Apple decides to show you something. And then, they always show you the bad thing. They don't show you the thing you want to remember. You want to find a way to be a full service photographer. And most of you are going to be like, you know what? My clients don't want that. My clients don't want prints. They don't want albums. They don't want that. Don't make that decision for them. Your job is to just show them the possibilities, not to make that decision for them whether they want it or not. So where do you start with all of this? Remember, you're not just a photographer, you're a business. Where are untapped genres of photography that you could jump into? What's one price offer or mindset shift that you'll change this week? Are you ready for the first impressions? And then find where you're not marketing yourself. Do you have a question? How do I make my albums? I use Fundy Album Designer. Fundy Album Designer. I feel like in Adorama's playlist somewhere, I actually do a demo on how I make my albums. I'm pretty sure. So if you go to their YouTube channel under the Breathe Your Passion playlist, you can probably find it. It's automated, so it's not too bad. But as a photographer, you don't have to choose between art and income. You get to have both. And hopefully, you guys have some questions for me because I ended a little early. You said 6:30? No, you said 6. Okay, good. I'm very punctual by nature, so any minutes short, I freak out a little bit.
Yeah, it's annoying.
It is, I know. I'm sorry. I was 2 minutes late. I said I'd be here at 1:50. It was 1:52. It'll hurt, yeah. How do I start pricing the files? I include the files, if I'm going to talk about either weddings or portraits, I am only including the high resolution files in the top 2 packages. It's not in the bottom. But you want to know what is in every package? An album. Because think about it. If I just finished telling you that people run into burning buildings for these albums, then I know the way that you enjoy these photos the best is when they're printed. Because I know digitally, the shelf life on Instagram is whatever. And your children are not discovering this, God forbid, CD or USB drive and trying to figure out how to plug in an old hard drive that, the port is obsolete, right? But the tangible is what gets handed down. If I tell you hey, the most important thing I'm going to give you are the tangibles, but they're not included in every package. Okay, that doesn't speak the same thing that I'm trying to teach them. So what I do is I'm telling you the digital files, they're not the thing that's worth it. So who cares if they're included in the bottom package, as long as the album is, because that's what lasts. So a little bit of pricing psychology there. Yeah.
Even in the pricing conversation.
Okay, so the question is, do I itemize things on a corporate client's quote? And the answer is, it depends on the corporate client. Some corporate clients want you to itemize every little thing on there. I'll show you a really good example of this. One of them, who I usually don't itemize, actually. What? Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me just get to the quote. Yeah, you can go ahead. So this is for Hawaii for a 5-day shoot. They did not care that I itemized all the main things here. That's just them. But they were toying between having me bring in an underwater photographer specialist, and they wanted that separate and itemized. Every corporate company does it completely differently. When I invoice Canon for something, they want it all itemized. So it's just a conversation. And from what I know about all the corporate companies I work with, they have their rules, and you better stick to their rules or you can go somewhere else. So don't be too high and mighty on methods when it comes to corporate, because they have their whole legal team and they're like, yep, here's what we're doing, and you have to do this. Good. Okay. If you guys want to know more about the Photo Mastermind, I'm not selling you something because I can't, because it's a big waiting list. So if you are interested in anything else that I have for business, you just DM me the words Photo Mastermind and I can give you some preliminary information there, but it is a pretty long waiting list. Business is what I am particularly passionate about because it's one thing when people come up to me and they're like, oh, you taught me how to light. You taught me how to pose. I feel more confident in how I communicate with my clients. That's all well and good. But for me, if you come to me and you tell me my business is now sustainable, I'm not worried about my finances, I'm able to feed my family because of what you told me, like that gets me passionate. And I know it's not what gets most views on YouTube, but to me, it's what makes the biggest change and the biggest impact. So that's what I'm concentrating on. And again, if you did not get it before, that is the link to the presentation. So you can grab that. It's not a carrot. It's not a grab. You don't have to give me an email address, nothing. That's just everything there. And hopefully I'm able to help you out and give you a lot of ideas. I think some of you have headaches with all the ideas that I've given you. Good. I did my job. Thank you so much for coming.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Adorama event space. And thank you for coming here this afternoon. And thank you to Adorama for hosting us. My name is Debbie. I'm the Regional Director of APA New York. APA is very proud to be collaborating with Adorama on these monthly events. And we are also proud when we get to collaborate with Joe Sinnott from School of Visual Arts, AKA SVA. So it's great to bring all three of us together today. And now a little bit about APA before I introduce Joe. We are American photographic artists. APA exists to provide business tools that help photographic artists of all levels run a smarter, more creative and profitable business. And we've been doing it for over 40 years. APA has a strong heritage of providing benefits which help our members achieve creative and financial success. And our benefits come in many forms. And by joining APA, individual artists join a community which can amplify their voice on the national stage. There are 5 different levels of membership, starting at just $50. So check them out and choose the level that's right for you. And now on to SVA and Joe Sinnott, who's here helping us out today. Joe has over 30 years of experience as a staff photographer for 13 WNET, the largest PBS station in the country. And as a faculty member at the School of Visual Arts, Joe's diverse body of work includes celebrity portraiture, news, public affairs, performance, corporate, and communication events. And this webinar is just a little tidbit of the kind of information that you can get if you take one of Joe's classes at SVA Continuing Education. He'll give you the links later. He has new classes starting in June. And we are really thrilled to have him here today. So without further ado, here's Joe Sinnott.
Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. Tonight we're talking about photography pricing, how to price your work. If you've ever been in a class with me or heard me talk about this topic before, some of this might be a little bit of a repeat, some of it will be new and different, and I'll be stopping at various points so that people can ask questions, and then at the end I'll take the flood of questions. What do people pay you for? I mean, in the great grand landscape of trading your precious life for money, what do people pay you for? 3 things. People pay you for toil, brains, and responsibility. Toil, the sweat of your brow, picking things up and putting things down, like moving the bags from point A to point B. Brains, bigger brains are worth more money than tiny brains. Good ideas are worth more money than bad ideas. And in the world of photography, brains usually is just another word for talent, right? Like better pictures are worth more money than less better pictures. And responsibility, being in charge, owning it. How big is it? How complicated is it? How many moving parts are there? What are the logistics? Being in charge of all of that, taking on big responsibility is worth money. In the entire world of work, this is what people pay you for. Some jobs skew more towards one than the other. Like the smartest ditch digger in the world probably makes about the same amount of money as the least smart ditch digger in the world. And corporate CEOs, they don't make their big money because they're necessarily the smartest person in the corporation. They make their big money for being responsible because the buck stops there. Whatever job you work probably involves some combination of these 3 things. So what are you worth? We're going to interact for a second. So I've been taken pictures for money for about 35 years. I'm very fortunate that I've been able to make a living at doing something that I'm good at and that I like for a long time. If we're comparing you to me, maybe you've been taking pictures for less time, or you're just starting out, or you have less experience. There's probably an argument to be made that somebody with more experience who's been doing it longer can prove that they're worth more money than somebody with less experience who's been doing it less time. But the biggest mistake I see people make is that they think that less experience means massively less money. Let's take those three things again: toil, brains, and responsibility. I'm going to pick you because you're definitely much younger than me. If I'm pitching myself on an assignment and I'll call it a 2-hour business event, right? Like a 2-hour grip and grins business event. Normally I'd open at about $900 for a job like that. Now, you're dressed like this, camera, lens, flash on camera, taking pictures of people, like having fun. Would you do that job for less than $900?
Yes.
Okay. So in a little while, we're going to talk about how much less and how you think about that. But assuming that you might be worth a little bit less than me, it's not like you're worth half, or it's not like you're worth a quarter. You're worth more than that. Because of those three things, toil, brains, and responsibility, two of those things are no different between you and me. The amount of toil we're going to put in on the job is not going to be any different just because I've been doing it for longer. The job's the job. And the responsibility is no different between you and me. The only thing that might be different between you and me is brains, quality of the pictures. And without looking at any pictures at all, it's possible my pictures are better, so I'm worth more money. But it's also possible that your pictures are better, in which case you're worth more money. And the amount of time I've spent doing it doesn't have anything to do with it. Right? Do you smell what I'm cooking? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? The idea that you might sell yourself at a lower price than somebody who's been doing it for longer, that might make sense. And it's often the case that people that are younger than me can sell themselves at lower prices. I just turned 60. So my expenses are higher. My lifestyle is different. There's only so low I can go before I'm eating a loss. People that are younger have a competitive advantage that way. And I'm not saying that you should sell yourself on price. I'm not saying that you should race to the bottom. All I'm saying is don't be so prepared to sell yourself really low, because between you and the most experienced, gifted photographer in the world, mostly that job is the same. Things that you should think about when you're trying to figure out your fee. How much work do you have to do before and after the job? Some jobs, you shoot a couple hundred pictures. Some jobs, you shoot a couple thousand pictures. The amount of time you spend sitting at home going, arrow, 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 delete, arrow, zoom, arrow, delete, back, forward, zoom, delete, delete. Like the amount of time you spend doing that, that's time. You got to get paid for your time. We don't normally articulate that time as part of the job. You build it into your fee. How much equipment do you have to carry? I charge more money to show up with 200 pounds worth of gear on a cart than I do to show up with one bag that fits over my shoulder. More gear is more work. What extra services are you providing? We're going to talk more about that. I am going to lead by saying for commercial assignments, retouching is usually not included in the price. Your client may ask you what retouching costs, but unless you've negotiated some threshold of retouching as part of the price, that is above and beyond your estimate after the fact. How fast does the job need to happen? Pictures that I deliver in 3 days don't need to cost as much as pictures that I need to deliver tomorrow. If I'm shooting today and I'm delivering tomorrow, what am I not doing tonight? Sleeping. And do I get paid for that? I do. How far do you need to go to do the job? Like, are you taking a 1-hour drive? Are you taking a 3-hour drive? Do you have to sit in a chair in the sky? The amount of time you spend, you have to factor that into how much are you going to estimate for an assignment. How many people are on the job? Not just like you, an assistant, models, stylists. These are all people that you may be paying, that are under your supervision, that potentially your insurance has to cover. More people is more responsibility. Responsibility is work. You get paid for work. How good does the work need to be? And I will grant you, we all try to do our best work all the time. That's the goal. Do your best work all the time. But you can't make $1 out of 15 cents. If the client says, like, I want to photograph a teacup on black velvet with an elephant, they clearly have money to spend, right? Elephant rental is expensive. If the client has money to spend, if they have resources to invest in the assignment, that affords an opportunity to do bigger, better things. You can't make things that you can't make. If there's no money to pay for things, there's no money to do those things. We all try to do our best work, and you want to do the best you can out of the resources that you have to work with. And knowing what those resources are gives you a pretty good insight into what the client expects from the assignment, what the end result should look like. Okay, question.
Kevin in the chat's asking, they feel like the average person might not understand the time it takes to select, edit, might not understand why you need so much gear. How do you convince them otherwise?
I don't. In a very, very real sense, I don't. There was way back when, there was a men's clothing store, Sims. I don't know if you remember Sims. And Cy Sims used to say, an educated consumer is our best customer. And I guess that phrase has stuck with me all these years because it's useful. I suppose there is some amount of education that I have to do. Like I was having a conversation with a client about this last night. They were talking about delivery needs, and I was talking about the challenges associated with those delivery needs. But I don't try to explain to people how much gear I need or how much it costs. I explain to people what I charge. It's not like my rates are ridiculous or out of line with the rest of the industry. There's always somebody willing to do it for less. My strategy for my entire career has just been to wait them out. They'll put themselves out of business. If you don't charge rates that are sustainable for your business, you're not going to stay in business. I'm still here. A lot of people I know are not. That worked out. The time it takes to select and edit, I build that into my estimate. I don't usually articulate it as a separate charge. I just make it be part of the fee. I figure out how much time I'm going to take to shoot. I figure out how much time I'm going to take sitting in front of the computer going arrow, arrow, delete, arrow, zoom, arrow, delete. And then I formulate a fee that's based on that. If the client says, why is it so high? Usually my initial response is, it's not so high. You're asking for a lot. This is a phrase I find myself using over and over and over again in my classes. And it actually starts with a question. What does more cost? What does more cost? More. The thing that more costs is more. When people want more, it costs more. What do you know? Commerce. How is that? It is worth it to know what other people have been paid for in your market to do the same kind of work. In The Art of War, in the last chapter, the title of the chapter is On the Use of Spies. And I am not saying that you should be like planting listening devices in your client's place of work, but finding out what other people have gotten paid to do the same work, communicating with other photographers you know, finding out what other people charge in your same market for similar kinds of work, gives you an insight into what the market will bear for that kind of work. A little market research goes a long way. It's helpful to know what, and I'm not saying that you should necessarily charge what other people are charging to do the same work, but knowing what other people are charging to do the same work and what they're getting paid to do the same kind of work gives you a really, really good basis to help figure out your own prices. Yes, sir.
Do you ever ask people budget?
The question is, do I ever ask people what their budget is? And the answer is no. Because if I ask that question, I'm inviting a response that could be none of your damned business. They might not say that, but they might. And if I do, our business relationship is off on the wrong foot. On a very fundamental level, their budget is none of my business because their response is basically, why do you think that you get to know how much money I have in the bank? It's much better for me to figure out what I want to get paid for the job. If I pitch a number and they go, great, that's great, we'll see you Thursday. There's a little devilish person in the back of my brain that goes, damn, because clearly they were ready to spend more and I left some money on the table. But there is a bigger, better, smarter, healthier person who's been to therapy in my brain that also says, what are you complaining about? You're getting paid what you asked to get paid to do the work they're asking you to do. What's the problem? And you didn't have to struggle or whinge or fight. You pitched a number, they said yes. Easy. Why are you complaining that it was easy? And I usually try to listen to that one more than the other one.
You got a question in the chat. Do you itemize all the things, labor, crew, equipment, when sending out invoices or estimates?
I'm going to address this a little later in the slideshow, but there are line items on my estimate and invoice for categories of expense. Transportation covers all of the things associated with transportation. Gas, mileage, tolls, airfare, taxis, subway rides, anything that's transportation goes there. Assistance and talent, that line covers photo assistant, prop stylist, potentially models, anybody other than me who I'm paying on the assignment. On commercial jobs with billable expenses, commercial photography is a 100% cost recovery business. So all of the expenses that are associated with a given assignment are billable back to the client. You have to account for them responsibly and honestly. So the short answer is yes. I don't do that with every kind of assignment because some assignments have small amounts of expenses, and I just fold it into the fee. Another thing that helps you figure out your fee is knowing how much money your client has, because how much money do you have? Please give it all to me. Ultimately, that is my goal. My goal is to empty everybody's bank account and to walk away with all of the money in the world. The client's goal is different. The client's goal is to try to get me to do the job for 2 cheese sandwiches and a shaker of salt. That's why we negotiate. That's business. But seriously, 3 things you need, whenever you're starting negotiating any assignment, there are 3 things you need to know. How much money do you want to make? How much money are you going to start negotiating at? Which is going to be a higher number than the amount of money you want to make. And what is the lowest amount of money that you will do the assignment for? In a lot of ways, this is the most important number you need to know. Knowing what you want to make, that's probably not that hard to figure out. Knowing where you're going to start negotiating at, it's going to be more money than what you want to make. But knowing your walkaway number, that one's much more of a struggle. Your walkaway number is the number below which you will not do that assignment. You will say no. So let's suppose I start, let's play this game again. So the $900 assignment. Would you be willing to do the job for less than $900, the 2-hour gig?
Yeah, probably.
Good, okay. What is the lowest amount of money you would do that assignment for?
For 2 hours and all the labor afterwards, like 400 to 500.
All right, let's say 400, okay? Because 400 to 500, that's a 25% difference. That's a big difference. Let's say 400, which means if the client turns around to you and says, oh my God, I'm so sorry, we don't have $400, but could you do it for $350? You will say, I'm so sorry. I really wish that I could work with you. I hope you'll keep me in mind if another opportunity arises where our resources align better. You're like at $350, you're going to say no. You're going to say no?
Yeah.
Okay. And what about at 375? At 375, would you say no?
If I hear number 3, I'm like, starting with
All right, I think you're fixating on the wrong thing. What about 385? Would you do it for 385? It's only $15 less than your $400 number.
I guess at that point.
So 400 was not your walkaway number. You blew it.
Where does it end, kid? Where does it end?
You blew it. Your walkaway number is your walkaway number. If 400 is your walkaway number and they say $399.99, one, they're being a jerk. But two, if they say 1 penny less than $400, you say, I'm so sorry. I really wish that I could work with you on this. I hope you'll keep me in mind for another opportunity.
There's a thing in my mind where it's like, if I walk away from an opportunity, it's almost like $0 in my head now. Like I didn't get nothing. I didn't get the job.
And this is the point, I guess in a way, this is the point I'm trying to make. If you don't have a walkaway number, you never know what you're worth. You're probably not going to pick a walkaway number that is like massively below, that is so out of line with the rest of the industry. Like if they say 400 and you say 200, they weren't serious. I had somebody reach out to me recently. Like they were referred to me by somebody else. They needed somebody that night. It was like a quick 3-hour thing, very like relatively simple. And then they gave me the number, $100. And I said, I'm so sorry. I would love to be able to work with you. I hope you'll keep me in mind for some other opportunity. And like they asked me what my rate was. And I said, for this kind of work, I usually start at $450 an hour with a 2-hour minimum. There's no reconciling the gap between $1,350 and $100. And you're never gonna. Don't worry about those jobs. The thing I would suggest is if you hit that bottom number, if your client comes back below that bottom number, but you're still interested in the assignment for whatever reason, your bottom number describes a set of conditions that have been defined by the client, right? That set of conditions could be the duration of the assignment. It could be when the pictures are due. It could be things like that. What if you can redefine the assignment? If the client is doing a 2-hour gig, what if you say, well, all right, for $350, I couldn't give you the full 2 hours, but I could give you an hour and a half. Or for $350, when do you need the pictures? Oh, you don't need the pictures for 2 weeks? All right, if I got 2 weeks to deliver the pictures, I have a lot of opportunity to get other things done in between. If you redefine the assignment, your bottom number no longer applies. Now you can think of a new bottom number for the redefined assignment. But for a given set of parameters, whatever your bottom number is, that's your bottom number. And if you don't stick to it, you're never going to know what you're worth. And everybody's always going to know that they can negotiate you as low as they want to go. That's their job. Their job is to get their goods and services for the smallest amount of money that they can pay. Your job is different. Okay? How are we doing so far? A little advice about negotiating in general. Don't give people immediate numbers. It's a fool's game. It's a negotiating tactic. You don't have to do it. You're walking down the street, your client calls, hi, can you give me a ballpark figure on this? You're walking down the street on your phone. There are taxis, trains, like it's New York City. Are you really in a good situation to be thinking about all of the moving parts in a legitimate estimate while you're walking down the street on your phone? Don't get me wrong. If you can do that and do it well, do whatever makes sense to you. But I'm not recommending it. When people ask you for immediate numbers, they're engaged in a negotiating tactic. They want to try and lock you into a range before you've had a chance to really think about it. And they're playing on all of our motivation to work. We all want to work. We want to work as much as possible. Don't give immediate numbers. Nobody ever really needs them. The negotiating tactic is to lock you into something before you've had a chance to really think about it, to ask the questions that you need to ask to come up with a proper estimate. And there's nothing wrong with them doing that. There's just something wrong with you falling for it. Don't fall for it. that like, oh, but couldn't you give me a ballpark? I'm so sorry. I'll be back at my office in just a few minutes. I have a few questions. I'll be able to ask proper questions then and get real numbers. Oh, but like we just need it really, really fast. I know, I'm so sorry. I really want to help you out. Now, like I said, I'll be back to my office in just 15 minutes. Don't fall for it. They don't really need it. You don't really need to give it. Try not to make deals walking down the street on your phone, and try to do business in writing as much as possible. Talking on the phone and talking about the details of an assignment and like payment and rates and value added, the phone is not a great way to do that. Try to do business in writing as much as humanly possible, and try and keep your writing all in one channel. The one I use for business, email. And I'm not saying that all of the different messaging platforms we have to communicate are things that you can't or shouldn't use. But whichever one you start using to make a deal, try and stay inside that channel. Any questions about that? Moving right along. Shoot.
How often do people try to negotiate you down and ask you numbers?
The question is, how often do people try to negotiate me down? Almost every time, which is why I start with a higher number than what I actually want to make. Sometimes people don't try to negotiate me down at all. Sometimes people do. The times that people do, definitely more than the times that people don't. Okay? And by the way, there are clients and assignments and projects I work on where one of the reasons why I think that people don't try to negotiate me down is they know that I won't.
When you're trying to determine what your price is, there's the labor aspect. How do you determine where you land in that scale of pricing? Do you go as low as like minimum wage, all the way to like as high as you want to?
I would never. So the question is, how do I determine the range of pricing? I usually start by trying to figure out my time at about $4.50 an hour. That's different when somebody wants to book me for a full day. Usually I'm trying to get about $3,000 a day, $2,000 for a half day. There are people that charge more. There are people that charge less. There is no world where minimum wage compensates me for my time and the expense of doing business. Just my capital equipment expenses amortized over the range of assignments I'm going to use that equipment for, $15 an hour wouldn't cover it. And then all of my other business expenses, the business insurance, the cell phone bill, the internet service, like there are a lot of business expenses. There's no world where minimum wage is going to make that happen for you. I am going to submit, excuse me, that you might be worth more than $4.50 an hour. You might be worth less than $4.50 an hour. I know very few people who are competent in handling a camera and taking pictures for other people who are worth less than $200 an hour. And that's in my mind, that's a spectacularly low number. Like the thing I'm talking about there are, fresh, like people going to school for like photography students. Does that give you a range? I live to serve. Sure.
In the chat, they're asking, is it unethical or tacky to change contingency fee and an additional overhead fee at percentage of the total invoice?
Yes. The short answer is yes. You should. Anybody ever take an airplane anywhere? Anybody ever take a plane? And when you go to get on the plane and they charge you a whole bunch of fees that you didn't know about, how do you feel about that? Does it feel honest or crooked? Right. Maybe it's not crooked, but it doesn't feel honest, does it? It is much better to tell, believe it or not, the essence of a good business transaction is honesty. And people knowing what they should expect to pay, knowing what you're charging them, that's an important part of having a good business reputation. I want to be clear that I'm talking about a defined assignment that you're fulfilling within the parameters described. You show up on the job and they change the parameters of the assignment and they make the assignment bigger. What does more cost? More. And the important thing there is not to proceed with the assignment as it has changed at the lower rate that you agreed to. The important thing there is that as soon as the client describes a change in the assignment, you need to say to the client, these changes are going to increase the cost of the assignment. And that's that.
Someone's asking, how many hours is a day's work or a half day?
How many hours? Shweta. Hi, Shweta. How many hours is a day's work? Like normal business hours are 8 hours. You can make your day be as many hours as you want or as few as you want. Like I normally think of my work day, my shoot day as being 9 hours long because on a 9-hour day, I want to sit down and eat lunch for an hour if I can. I tend to think of my half days as being 4 or 5 hours long. No more than 5 hours. Once we go over 5 hours, that's a full day. Once we go over 5 hours, it's not a half day anymore, is it? Right? How'd we do? Okay. Yeah. Billable expenses. There are basically two kinds of business expenses as a photographer. Billable expenses are expenses associated with the assignment that you're working on for a given client. One assignment, one job, one client. It includes a lot of the things that you see on this list. It probably includes things that aren't on this list, but these show up as line items on your invoice. If you gave your client an estimate, there are estimated costs associated with all of these things that will actually happen on your job. If you're not hiring models, there's going to be no line item for models. If there's no retouching, or you're not hiring stylists, or there are no props, there's going to be nothing on those lines. They're going to be blank. But these expenses are above and beyond your fee and don't have anything to do with your fee. This is just what it costs to get the materials and the expertise that your client has asked for to do the job that they're asking you to do. Another kind of expense is overhead. The expenses associated with the day-to-day operations of your business. You don't bill these to your client as line items. The cost of my cell phone is not billed to my client. Like if I figure out how much I pay for cell phone service per day and I spend a day working on a job, there's not a cell phone charge for that day. Those expenses, the expenses that are just the overhead that it takes to run your business, are part of your fee. You don't wind up putting your entire fee in your pocket. Part of your fee pays for the expenses that it takes to operate your business. Knowing what your overhead is going to have an impact on what you can charge as a fee. You can't charge less money than it takes for you to stay in business. You need to have a fee that not only gives you enough money to pay your business overhead, but also enough money to pay your living expenses, which I'll talk about in a minute. Beyond your photography fee, the creative fee for being a photographer, taking beautiful pictures, there are also value-added fees. Pre-production or prep days, post-production days, if they're relevant to the assignment, travel days, which are usually billed at about half your day rate, the kit fee, which I'll talk about more in a minute. The raw processing fee is usually charged as a unit cost per image. It doesn't apply to every kind of commercial photography, but if you're doing something that involves a raw processing fee, you usually charge a flat amount of money to process each raw file as a high-resolution TIFF that your client is going to use for precision purposes. Retouching. I already talked a little bit about retouching, but I want to talk about the kit fee for just a minute. A kit fee is a way to amortize the cost of your capital equipment expenses in a way that you're only charging the assignments that use those tools for the use of those tools. It is kind of like this. It's almost as though you're renting equipment to your client that you actually already own. And I'm not opposed to the kit fee. It is far more prevalent in the industry now than it was when I started. In the early days of the kit fee, it was mostly about finding a way to recover the expenses of massively expensive new digital cameras when measured against most photographers' capital investment. Most photographers, like, commercial photographers, probably own $20,000 or $30,000 worth of equipment. You buy a $20,000 camera and another $10,000 worth of lenses, you've doubled your capital equipment investment. If you're going to make the investment in a tool like that, how do you recover the cost? One way is to raise your rates. But if you raise your rates, you have the potential of pricing yourself out of your current clients. Another way is to just raise your rates on the assignments where you use that particular super expensive piece of gear. That's where kit fees came from. And now they get used more profligately and a little differently. Whether or not you decide to do that is completely up to you. I don't do kit fees. I recover the expenses on all of my capital equipment by building it all into my fee. Everybody's paying for my equipment on some level over time, just as would be true for any business. If you're charging a kit fee, the implication is that your creative fee might be a little lower so that your rates, at the end of the day, broadly align with the rates of people that don't charge a kit fee and just charge a higher creative fee. How you do it is completely up to you. Just be consistent, do it with everybody, and be consistent in the way that you do it. Don't charge massively different amounts of money for the same kit on an assignment by assignment basis. Set numbers that are fixed and keep them there until you have a reason to raise those numbers for everybody. Questions?
You were mentioning about shooting an event, a couple hours or something like that here in the city. And do you charge for transportation, your cab going there and back?
So the question is, do I charge transportation expenses when I shoot events? And the answer is no. Because for events, I've decided to just fold those costs into my fee and make it be that way. Because most of my clients for whom I shoot events, they're not really interested in variable line item invoices for what is basically identical work on it, every time they ask me to do it. I've just made my fee accommodate the average of those costs so that it works out for me. What was the
person who was asking about additional fees being tacky is also asking, do you transparently share with clients that charge will include on top of the cost, or do you not charge tax?
Sales tax? Are we talking about sales tax? Sales tax applies to exchanges of goods. So I've made it my mission in life to never exchange goods. I don't charge sales tax because the law does not require me to charge sales tax. Any others? Did I miss any other questions? Yes, sir.
About sales tax, I used to charge sales tax all the time when I was shooting commercially. Versus events. Now, almost all my deliveries is through the internet, and so supposedly through the internet, you don't have to charge.
That's correct, because you're not delivering if I drop that stuff onto an optical disc and hand it to the client, theoretically I should be charging sales tax on the optical disc. And film and other material, like when I hand somebody a thing, whatever that thing is, like something made of matter as defined by physics, sales tax. Like other things that are ephemeral, what do you know? Ephemeral. Okay?
So,
sorry, go ahead.
Your friend Shweta is asking, I imagine you can't charge a kit fee unless your client base is fixed and you use the same equipment across these clients.
You know what? When I want to have the absolutely worst, most horrible argument possible with my spouse, I use words like always and never. Like always and never are definitely the key words to having the worst possible argument. So I'm not going to say always and never to something like this. I can probably create a situation in my mind where I charge a kit fee Well, first off, it doesn't matter whether your client base is fixed or not. If you're using the kit fee model in your pricing, that's something you should be doing with all of your clients, new and old. And it doesn't really matter whether I use the same equipment with all of these clients because the kit varies. And you charge different amounts of money for kits that are comprised of different assets. The kit fee that I charge for this camera and this lens and this other lens is not because I charge a different fee for this camera and this lens than I do for this camera and the other lens and the fourth lens. So figuring out what I'm charging for each item in my capital equipment inventory, that's something I've got to sit down and do. And then once I do it, when I put together a kit on a given assignment, I total up all of those numbers from my list, and that's my kit fee for that assignment. It's not like my kit fee is always $400 or always $600 or always $1,000. It depends on what's in the kit. Okay? There's a typical cycle when you're doing commercial assignments. Estimate, confirmation, invoice. I'm not going to talk about the whole cycle and all the details associated with it, but like an estimate is something that you draw up after getting information from your client. What kinds of photographs are you creating? What kinds of usage rights do they want? How far do they want to use those pictures? How many eyes are going to see them over what period of time? When are the pictures due? When are you supposed to deliver them? What sorts of other fees, like value-added fees, are going to be part of the estimate? All of these things are part of making an estimate, including an advance. If you're working on a commercial assignment, getting an advance to cover your expenses is not an uncommon practice. I don't ask for an advance every time I shoot a commercial job. For me, I have a $1,000 threshold. Once my out-of-pocket expenses hit $1,000, I'm asking for an advance. And most people are not going to whinge about it because you're not a bank, because none of us are banks. Have any of you ever been to a bank? Have any of you ever borrowed money from a bank? Nobody has ever borrowed money from a bank because banks don't loan you money. They rent it to you. And they charge you to rent you the money. An advance allows you to have the money to do the pre-production work and to accumulate the materials and to pay the labor associated with working on that client's specific assignment. It's the client's money, not your money. And you have to track it and account for it and keep receipts and know that you can itemize and justify every nickel of that money that you spent. But you're not going to start working on the assignment and buying things and accumulating things and booking things and putting deposits on things until you have the money to do it with. And if your client wants those things, your client will provide an advance so that you have the money to do it. At the end of the assignment, you'll return any remaining advance money to your client by deducting it from the bill. If they gave you a $2,000 advance and your fee is $3,000 and the actual expenses were $1,700, there's $300 worth of advance money left over, right? You don't write them a check for $300, you just deduct it from the amount due. You were going to ask me a question, sir.
Yes. You don't ask for a deposit to save the date?
The question was, do I ask for a deposit to save the date? That's different. That's not an advance on expenses. And I'm going to talk about that more when I talk about photography markets, commercial and consumer. When the job is completed, you send the bill and you include the fees and expenses minus any advance. Remember that your fee not only has to cover your business expenses, it has to cover your life. Figuring out a fee that's appropriate for your work and your clients and your assignments is in part about knowing how much it costs you to live. At periodic intervals, I sit down and figure out how much it costs me to live each month. And I do it over a 3-month period so I can average it out because some months are more expensive to live than others. But knowing how much it costs me to live each month gives me some pretty good insight in how much money I have to make each month. That does not mean that, oh wow, I only got one. It cost me $10,000 to live this month and I only have one job to shoot, so I have to charge that client $10,000. That's probably not going to work out for you. But knowing how much it costs you to live does give you some insight into how to price and structure your work. There are two primary markets in photography: commercial work, which is executed for a business purpose, and consumer work that is executed for a personal purpose. This is a very general way of talking about this. I don't want you to think it's binary, because some things are, but how many of you have heard of an entertainment called figure skating? Anybody ever heard of figure skating? All right, is figure skating a sport or an entertainment? Both. Both. It's both. What do you know? Human things can be both. Human things are not light switches. Human things can be both. And sometimes it's like figuring out what, commercial work, if I'm shooting business portraits for a corporation to use on their website and the corporation is paying me, very easy to talk about commercial work. Consumer work, you're shooting a wedding, pretty obviously consumer work. What about an actor's headshot? Is an actor's headshot personal or is it commercial? Why not both? Why not both? Right? Because you're not doing business with a business, you're doing business with an individual. Why not both? Generally speaking, though, it's easier to think about photography as breaking down into these two types of work. Commercial work largely breaks out into advertising, editorial, and public relations. I might be the only person that makes public relations a different thing. Most people lump public relations into advertising. And although there are a lot of good reasons to do that, and I know why people, I'm not arguing with the people that do it, they've got good reasons for doing it. I don't, because if you price public relations jobs the same way you price advertising jobs, you are likely to price yourself out of the public relations job. Advertising jobs usually have very, at least comparatively, very high budgets. And of these three, editorial jobs tend to have the lower budgets. Public relations kind of falls in between. Advertising, like we've all seen advertising, it sells or promotes a product or service. The space it was, the ads occupy was paid for. When you're flipping through a magazine, you can tell the difference between the articles and the ads, right? Because the pages that the ads are on, those were paid for by the advertiser. The pages that the articles are on, that's owned by the magazine. That's their own space. The amount that an advertiser pays for space varies by where the space is in the magazine, how big the space is, not just magazines, but anywhere. How big is the space? Where is it? How many issues does it circulate? How many colors is the ad in? All of these things affect the price that an advertiser pays for that space. And knowing what the advertiser pays for that space gives you a little insight into maybe what you should be charging, right? So if you know what magazines the picture is going to show up in, getting their media kit and knowing how much your client is going to pay for those pages gives you a pretty good idea of how much they're going to spend on that campaign, right? On the use of spies. Maybe spies are just good research. Advertising rates are usually described either as day rates or fee for use. At the end of the day, in my mind, I tend to think of all rates as being day rates because ultimately I'm getting paid for a day, but that's not necessarily the way you articulate it to your client. Day rates are about describing how, like a full day's work versus a half day work. Your half day rate should definitely be higher than your full day rate. Higher than half of a full day rate. If your full day is $3,000, your half day should minimally be about $2,000. Your half day rate should be 2/3 to 3/4 of your half day rate. Remember that every time you work a half day, there's an argument to be made that you're taking a little bit of a loss because who's going to hire you for the other half of the day? Nobody. And if somebody else comes along and wants to hire you for the same day, for a full day, you've eaten a loss on that day. Your half day rate, everybody expects your half day rate to be higher than half of your full day rate. Fee for use is about describing your fee in terms of the number of eyes that are going to see it. It relates back to the Copyright Reform Act, and ultimately it is the more widely your picture is going to get used, the more you're going to get paid for that use. Editorial pictures are used to illustrate articles. They're editorial content. The publisher owns the pages that the picture is going to show up in. The pictures are associated with articles that are written for the magazine. The rates are much lower than advertising, or they tend to be much lower than advertising, but the usage is much narrower. The typical narrow usage for a magazine is called First North American rights, where they can use the picture during the period of time that that issue is out, and that's it. Advertising rates are much higher, in part because the usage is usually much, much broader. Editorial rates are often described as full day, half day, or hourly, or as space rates. Every time I talk about space rates, people tell me nobody does that anymore, and then somebody comes up to me and says, this magazine wants to pay me space rates, what do I do? So I guess some people are still doing it. Space rates, instead of paying you like day rate or half day rate, they pay you by the number of pictures of you they're going to use and how large they're going to use them. 2-page spread, full page, half page, quarter page, and spot. Spot being anything smaller than a quarter of a page. It's not common for every assigned subject to get used when you're doing an editorial job, and it is smart to get a commitment for usage minimums. Like, all right, I'm willing to work for space rates, and you'll negotiate what the space rates are, but under no circumstances can the total bill come to less than X, whatever it is. Or some people that do space rates, they'll do a combination of both. They'll pay you a very, very, very small day rate, and then space rates for all of the pictures that they use on top of that. Public relations are pictures that are shot that are about promoting something, but not necessarily about selling it. The space that those pictures show up in is not paid for. The people that are creating the pictures in the context of trying to generate influence. Like this is a page from the online press room of a place I used to work, and this place creates pictures to promote their television programs. And they make those pictures available to press outlets to promote their television programs. And people that download these pictures agree to the terms, which means you can only use them for editorial promotion of our programs, of this program. And from the point of view of the people looking at those pictures, they can't tell the difference between those and editorial content. If somebody's going to write a review about a TV show and they want a picture, and they don't or can't send a photographer to photograph that TV show being made, maybe they can go to the online press room and get the picture they need for the review that they're writing. And that's where PR pictures come into play. The potential scope of use is wide, although the duration is usually kind of limited. The rates are significant, and although they are definitely higher than editorial, they are also smaller than advertising. With consumer work, you're not doing the same thing. With consumer work, you're involved in something called package rates. When you're doing weddings and family pictures and family events, pictures that you do for people, usually what you're doing is you're selling a package. It's a defined set of goods and services for a specific flat fee. For this size wedding with this many things, I charge this much. For the wedding with bigger, more albums and more prints and longer, I charge this much, which is more. You need to, when you're figuring out what your package rates are going to be, you also have to figure out what your package overhead is going to be. How much is your photo assistant? How many prints are you going to make? How much does it cost to build albums? What is your sort of average transportation expenses? These are all things you have to think about when you're coming up with package rates. And of course, what will the market bear? What do other photographers in the same area that you're working in charge for their services? Once again, I'm not saying that you necessarily have to charge the same amount, but if everybody else in your area is charging $5,000 for a wedding and you want to charge 10, you are competing with people like in a challenging environment. Because if the other photographers are charging 5, What is it you bring to the table that makes you worth twice as much money? And maybe you bring something to the table that's worth twice as much money, but really think about that before you do it. A lot of the expenses and value-added services associated with commercial work are included in the package. You need to think about what the value of those services are before you determine what your package what your package rates are going to be. It is common and important to get a non-refundable deposit. That's like a hold the date deposit. Somebody books you, they sign the contract, they give you a deposit, that holds the date. They change their mind later, they're out the deposit, because there's no guarantee that you're going to find somebody else to book you on that same date. If you were to return that deposit, you're now out the deposit and that day's work. So for this type of thing, a non-refundable deposit is common. And although I don't do contracts with every single commercial assignment I do, I always do contracts with consumer assignments. And in some ways, they might be more important. Your contracts should talk about the shooting hours that you're contracted for, what are the payment deadlines, what are the delivery deadlines. There should be a force majeure clause, which basically describes your limit of liability. If everything goes horribly wrong, what are you responsible for? And what are you specifically not responsible for? Contracts define the details of an assignment with the client, and they foster relationships based on trust. Things that are in a contract are not subject to, ideally, they are not subject to, I thought this and you said that. It's all in writing. We all have the same contract. We know what's expected of each other. We know what we are each responsible for. When people say, I don't really want to do contracts, that is a red flag for me, because it could create an opportunity for a very unharmonious and rancorous conclusion. You see all the syllables I got in there? Remember, the contracts are governed by the laws of the state in which you're operating and in which the contract is going to be enforced. Can contracts be verbal?
No.
You are mistaken in the state of New York. In the state of New York, contracts can be verbal. And don't get me wrong, verbal contracts are, by and large, crappy contracts that are hard to enforce. It is not a good way to do business. But in the state of New York, verbal contracts are still contracts. If you find yourselves in a dispute in court, it's going to be a lot of, like, they said, which is challenging and difficult to make anything happen, but they're real. In the absence of a formal contract, other things that are written might be enforceable as a contract. As a choice between a verbal contract and an email chain, which one would you rather have? Email chain, because things are in writing. Because we all read the emails throughout the entire project. We all know what was expected. Okay?
You got a bunch of questions.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Ignore everybody. Don't worry about it. All right. So first of
I
all,
wasn't ignoring everybody. I was only ignoring you.
oh well, what's this button here do? I'll just. So
I keep forgetting I have no leverage in this relationship.
you're in my house, kid.
I am in your house.
Okay, so one is if you've been offered to do work pro bono, basically you're doing the work for free. You said you're going to do it for free. Do you still send the deposit, probably for tax purposes?
No, if I'm doing the work for free, I'm doing the work for free. Free is free.
If are deposits only for weddings, and what about if the clients say I don't do deposits?
If deposits don't only have to be for weddings, there are other large events than weddings. There are coming of age events. There are events in other religions and cultures that are significant. Like weddings pop into my head because that's like the big one that I have the most personal contact with. And I don't do a lot of weddings. Like I do a couple of weddings a year to keep my wedding muscles strong and make sure that I can still do it. But I can think of a lot of situations where I might collect a deposit other than a wedding. But those situations probably don't include meeting somebody in the park to do a quick headshot. They might include doing headshots in the studio as a scheduled day of headshots. Because if I scheduled 6 people, like rent the studio, we're doing headshot day, like this is how much it costs for your slot, and there's a deposit. Because if you don't show up, there's money I could have made from somebody that would show up. In that case, I would take a deposit.
What do you do if they say they won't take a deposit though?
I
They don't do deposits.
I guess you're not interested in working with me.
Yeah, you got your own terms. Stick to them.
Well, in this particular case, when somebody says, I don't do deposits, what are they saying? What they're saying is that they want to avoid any responsibility for committing you to your time, but not committing to actually working with you and paying with you.
It's commitment issues.
So, all right, that's for, like, you don't do deposits. That's fine. Don't give me a deposit. I will book other work for that day.
And then the last one was, what do you think about posting your rates on your website so it's public?
Oh, I am opposed to that for two reasons that are actually pretty different. One is
The question is, what do you think about posting your rates on your website so that they're like fixed in public?
the bigger issue is, do you have any pictures of people on your website? Because if you do, and you do not have model releases for those people, and you post your rates, your website is much more arguably advertising instead of a gallery. And if you use somebody's recognizable likeness for advertising without their explicit consent, you have violated the New York Civil Rights Act of 1909. I am not a lawyer, but I could play one on TV. So, like, to use somebody's recognizable likeness to promote a product or service for a trade purpose, you need their explicit consent. And usually the way we acquire that explicit consent is their signature on a model release. And if you don't have their signature on a model release, putting their face next to your prices is problematic. I'm happy to answer any questions. That's my email address. I get paid to answer questions.
All right, so thanks. We want to thank Joe for joining us tonight. Of course, hit subscribe because you probably aren't subscribed to this. I promise you. Hit subscribe, hit like, drop comments. Joe checks them every day because he's very, very lonely. Joe, thank you so much. Everybody clap for Joe.
Thank you.